And we are back, and we just finished 2024's Nosferatu, rated R, with a runtime of 2 hours and 12 minutes. This comes to us from director Robert Eggers, with writing credits to Robert Eggers and Henrik Galeen and Bram Stoker. This is a remake of F.W. Murnau's 1922's Nosferatu film, and stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Bill Skarsgård, Willem Dafoe, among others. Again, this is a retelling of the 1922 classic that was directed by F.W. Murnau, who I just found out did this film. Basically, it was Bram Stoker's Dracula, but didn't want to pay royalties, so just made a few. Yeah, it was a ripoff. Just made a few
Let's call
changes.
it what it is. It was a ripoff of Dracula.
Because he didn't want to pay royalties. Yeah. That's amazing. This film is up for Oscar contention in the categories of Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Achievement in Cinematography, deservedly so, Best Achievement in Production Design also, and Best Achievement in Costume. Again, the costuming and the production work on this are just absolutely stunning, as is the cinematography. The cinematography category is a tough one. There's Dune is in it. I didn't care for Dune 2, but it is a very pretty movie.
Yeah.
I'm sad that it wasn't nominated for Best Picture. I think it was strong enough to be in that group, but it didn't make it. It didn't get a shout out for the director or any of the actors, unfortunately. And is, I guess, getting more attention in these technical categories. So we'll see how it fares. In cinematography, it's up against The Brutalist, Nosferatu, Dune Part 2, Maria, and Emilia Perez. I feel like Emilia Perez is just...
That's for cinematography?
Cinematography, yeah.
I don't anything that special about Emilia Perez.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw Maria. It was just...
There's nothing special about that either.
Nothing special about that cinematography either. I mean, if we're gonna go against cinematography, I guess Brutalist and Dune 2 and Nosferatu. I still feel like I haven't seen The Brutalist.
I haven't seen The Brutalist, but if I had to choose between Dune 2 and Nosferatu,
I would pick Nosferatu. Yeah,
there was more going on there.
And it was just gorgeous. Oh my god, it was gorgeous.
Like seriously, it felt like, and it was like, it paid attention to the source material too, in that sometimes the shots looked black and white, but they weren't.
But they weren't.
They weren't black and white.
Yeah.
And just the way the lights, there's that. I keep seeing that one shot of the crossroads.
Yeah.
When Nicholas Hoult
comes to Orlok's castle for the first time.
He's on his way to Orlok's castle. He's lost his horse. He just ends up at this perfect crossroads in the middle of the woods. And the camera pans up, and the moon is shining through a hole in the trees above the crossroads. Yeah. And the way the light is cascading down with the snowflakes and just the ground and gorgeous. Everything, and just his tiny little figure. It's that could be
a painting.
That could be a painting. Yeah. You could hang that scene on a wall. Because it looks, it's a beautiful shot. Not
just the cinematography, like everything. There was a lot of attention paid to the exteriors, the interiors, the way things looked, like the tools that were used in this time, the costuming. I mean, the costuming alone, like I feel bad because I feel like this film should have gotten more love, and I have a sinking feeling that, listen, I didn't hate Wicked, but I feel like because it came out later, although this came out Christmas Day, but I feel like maybe Wicked is more, I don't know, it's happier, so it's more, maybe
Wicked's got more of a popular, poor choice of words there, but it's more popular.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the Academy Awards isn't really about
merit. It's more about popularity.
Skill. It's more about popularity.
Yeah.
It has been for a long time. There's a lot of cases where people will get awards just because of who they are, not the performance that they did.
Or they get the pity Oscar. Because they finally we're finally going to give it to you.
It's like we forgot about this person all this time.
Or we just didn't give it to them.
Or we just,
like Scorsese, who won for The Departed, which is not one of my favorite Scorsese's.
Film, no.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't even be in his top 5.
I don't think so,
films.
No, which is hilarious. And that's the one that got the Oscar.
Yeah, because it was just like, he'll be dead soon.
Yeah. He's still with us, mercifully. But back to Nosferatu. I'm looking at this film, and it's funny. I was thinking about Del Toro's Crimson Peak. which is also very gothic in nature. It's this love story. This is not, I mean, it's a love story, but not exactly, which is kind of interesting because, I
wouldn't say it's a love story. I think it's a story about.
Well, Ellen and Thomas are in love.
Ellen and Thomas are in love, but as far as like Count Orlok and Ella,
no.
To me, that's not love. That was a relationship forged out of desperation and loneliness and
obsession.
There really wasn't. It wasn't like there was any point where it was just like, oh, I love him. I need to be with him. It was just, even in the beginning, it was just, she was a lonely person.
Yeah.
And she was, it wasn't even like she saw him. It was like some sort of a feeling.
Yeah.
It was like a dream of something nice that she thought was nice, but it turns out to be something terrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, love story in the fact that there's the love story of Ellen and Thomas. There's the love story of Friedrich and Anna.
Yeah.
So there are love stories within the scope of this, I guess, gothic horror, which reminded me of Crimson Peak because it also had this, definitely the look, right? The aesthetic. I mean, although here it's definitely amped up and just gorgeous and more beautiful. Not that Del Toro's film isn't beautiful as well, but it's just a different type.
Style.
Yeah, it's a different style.
Del Toro is more, his stuff is more vibrant
and fantastical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this felt very severe and cold and harsh, but still beautiful, but also born out of, to your point, this story of malevolence, because Orlok is not a nice person. Oh, well, he's a monster, and he is obsessed with claiming Ellen.
Yeah.
To the point where he threatens her and is like, if you don't come to me willingly,
I'll kill everything.
Everything you love. And he makes good on that promise. Or he starts to make good on that promise.
Plus he's plaguing the entirety of the German town that they live in.
Right. And almost killed Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was very... It's a great film, first off.
It's a great... I feel like it was... I like that they took the story and they fleshed it out. I've only seen chunks of the original Nosferatu, but it's a silent movie. It's supposed to be scary. It's pretty rudimentary. It's a very rudimentary retelling of Dracula with some changes to it.
Right.
This, they definitely added to it. They added more story elements. The characters are more fleshed out. The relationships between them all are more fleshed out. I don't know if they added stuff that was in the original Dracula, because obviously, as we mentioned, this is Nosferatu is basically a derivative story of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I did recognize a lot of story elements from Dracula that I may not have realized. Like I said, I only saw bits and pieces of the original Nosferatu, but I don't think that they were there.
I also feel like, much like you, I haven't seen Murnau's film from start to finish. I might have to sit down and watch it now that we've seen this, but in the pieces that I've seen of it, it didn't feel like Ellen was a major character. And in this film, she is the main character.
Yeah.
The story starts with her and ends with her. The final shot is of her. The beginning sequence is her. And this is mostly told from Ellen's perspective. Mostly. I mean, there are scenes where you're seeing what's happening with Thomas, but for the most part, this is Ellen's story. And Lily Rose Depp does a really great job here. I feel like I really felt a lot of empathy and compassion for her. I felt terrible that she was perceived as this just hysterical nonsense woman.
From what you were reading, that he did apparently like research about, I guess, theories of the time and hystericalness, and hysteria was
a big thing, right?
a woman's problem,
right?
When women were acting strange, it's a hysteria.
Let's bleed her.
Let's bleed her. I mean,
she has too much blood.
Hysterectomy and hysterical both come from the same word. It was all everything apparently revolves around a woman's menstrual cycle, and that's why she's the way she is.
Right. So yeah. I feel like she's sort of just recently burst on the scene, Lily Rose Depp, but she's done a really great job with things that she's been in, at least for me. And even a film like Silent Night, which we saw her in, which I didn't care for, but I really liked her and her character in that film. And here too, she definitely has a meatier role. And I felt like she knocked it out of the park. She came across as just a seasoned pro. She's still a very young actor, but she did a really amazing job of conveying the nuances and the layers of the Ellen character, how she's this walking wound. She
seems to play sad very well.
Well, she has these eyes that are very
her main, like I would say her resting face is sort of like this serene sadness.
Yeah.
And you could see that in her eyes. So yeah, for roles like that, it'd be interesting to see her, like, if she could do something completely different than that, something more manic or alive.
I think she could. I think she could. I've
never really seen her in much of anything where it doesn't look like she's like stoned or sad.
Yeah. I think, again, she's sort of at the start of her career, so I think she still has a ways to go. But, so far, I feel like she's a good actor. I really enjoyed her in this. I felt a lot of empathy and compassion for her character. The ending made me incredibly sad. And, I think she did what she needed to do. I think she knocked it out of the park here. And then you have other actors in this that you've obviously seen more, like a Nicholas Hoult or a Bill Skarsgård, who's completely unrecognizable in this. It's crazy what these actors are doing these days. Like between him and Colin Farrell as Penguin, right? Aaron Taylor Johnson is also great. The always fabulous Willem Dafoe, right? Ralph Ineson, who Eggers had worked with on The Witch with. So yeah, you have a lot of talent in this, and it's much like other films we've watched recently. It's all pulled together really nicely. Again, the cinematography, the costuming, the set design, just really amazing work, and also adds to the story because you really feel like you're in this time. And
you're transported into this world.
German village in the 1800s, right? And I think something that you spoke to about, and I think originally after we saw the film, I think I mentioned to you the scenes that you highlighted where it was either a dream or a memory. It seemed black and white, but there's this hint of blue over it. But it's still read as almost like a black and white film, almost like an homage to the original. So there's a lot of
the way it was lit, very contrasty, but not so much that you couldn't see anything.
Right.
As you mentioned, the sets really... Oh my God! Everything was like Orlok's castle.
Castle was off the chain.
Just although when you go in, as hell, and the way that they handled, I loved how they handled his movement because he'd be like right next to Nicholas Hoult, and then Thomas. He'd be right next to Thomas, and then Thomas would sort of like look, and he'd be across the room. Mm-hmm. And then he'd go and sit down, and he'd be right behind him with his hand on his shoulder or something.
And his hands are creepy with
those crazy nails. And good Lord, that voice. That voice.
Where did he pull that from?
And not only the voice, but the breathing.
Yeah.
That hideous, like, wet, gasping breath that was, like, raw. Everything he was doing was just like...
I love Bill Skarsgård. He is just...
He is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
For between this and Pennywise, he is definitely like the monster guy.
Yeah. I see him in the film, and he's completely unrecognizable. If somebody had said to me, "Do you know who that is?" and if I didn't know, I'd be like, "No, I have no clue who that is. Is that Doug Jones? I don't know. Who is that?"
You wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah. No. He's unrecognizable. That is amazing what these actors are doing as of late. They are really disappearing into their characters. Also, Nicholas Hoult. We've watched this young man grow up in front of us, and he's really come into his own. I feel like he's done some really interesting work. He is devastating here because he is going through a phrase that you said before, kind of this roller coaster, this just crazy thing that is just, it's a lot. It's a lot. I think in the beginning, he's with his wife and he's kind of trying to be understanding, but he doesn't understand what's going on. But he knows that he loves her.
He knows he loves her, but it's like we said, it's that time in the world where it was just like, oh, she's just being hysterical. It has something to do with her menstrual cycle or too much blood or whatever nonsense they were coming up. Your melancholy. They would just have all these different words for all of this stuff. And plus, like with his character, you feel especially bad for him because he is literally a pawn in this story. It's like we need him because we need him to go. He has to be the one to go to the castle, and he wants to do his best. He's like, oh, I'm a newly married man. I have to provide. I have to provide for my family. We're going to buy a big house with a servant and have children. And in order to do this, I'm going to have to go to freaking Transylvania
to sell this guy a house.
To sell this dude a house. Yeah. Or the house is already sold. He just needs to sign the paperwork. But he doesn't want to come out.
Right. And then his journey to Count Orlok was interesting because he stops at that like gypsy encampment and they're basically telling him, don't go there.
Well, I don't think he understood anything.
Well, no, he didn't. But they were telling him like,
that old lady. She's like, don't do it, don't do it. Yeah. She's like kissing and spitting. And that camp was just terrifying.
Yeah. And then they just all disappear.
Yeah.
And take his damn horse.
They take his horse. He has to walk.
And then on the way back, where he's, I guess, rescued by this like religious order that lives out there and how they're trying to like, please don't go until you're completely healed. But he's worried about Ellen. And Ellen's going through it on her own because she's still getting these nightmare visitations. And it's like this shadow that constantly hovers over her since she was a child. The mood and the atmosphere on this are just unparalleled. Yeah. Just really great work from Eggers. I don't think you and I I think we thought it was a pretty movie, but I don't think you and I enjoyed The Northman as much as we did The Lighthouse or The Witch. But this is another just really strong film, really strong storytelling. And again, like all these elements coming together really nicely from the set design and the costuming and the cinematography and even the performances to come together to make a really impactful and memorable storytelling experience.
Eggers knows how to create a film with atmosphere.
Yeah, for sure. Just
amazing atmosphere. Like you mentioned, we weren't too thrilled with the story of The Northman.
But the visuals on it were...
I mean, for me, it just... it was muddy as far as... Who should I actually be rooting for or anything like that? But the atmosphere, the visuals, beautiful. Same with The Lighthouse, same with The Witch. And this might be, in my mind, his best looking film. Agreed. This is gorgeous. Yeah. This is a feast for the eyes. And the story's good.
Good storytelling too.
Good story, great acting. Everybody was great. I felt bad for Friedrich.
Oh God.
Willem Dafoe.
Always a treat.
I love William Dafoe.
Yeah, always a treat.
He is so amazing.
Yeah. I love that he's in Eggers like cast stable of actors. Yeah, because he'll work with him. He was just batshit in Lighthouse. Yeah.
And that when he does that like crazy accent.
Yeah.
Which he's sort of doing here.
But a little less severe. And then
seem to enjoy saying the word cock.
Yes.
The cock crows.
Yeah. I agree. Friedrich, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, also very tragic character.
Everything's tragic in this movie.
Yeah.
You can't really narrow it down. So, I mean, not really spoilers. Basically, this film has a lot of tragedy in it.
Yes.
Not going to give away too much, but go see it. It's really good.
This is tagged as dark fantasy, supernatural horror, which absolutely, and also according to the description here, a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. That's
spot on.
That is spot on. That is a perfect one-line synopsis of what this movie is. Did you think that anything in the story could have been improved upon, or
no?
You like the end product?
Yeah. I thought from beginning to end, it was a good story.
Yeah. What would you give it, 1 to 10?
I'd give it a 9.
I, too, would give this a 9. I think from where it starts to where it ends, it is absolutely magical storytelling.
This is top-tier filmmaking. This is good stuff.
Yeah, he definitely knocks it out of the park. And again, like I said before, I think all the elements come together really nicely here to craft this sensational storytelling experience. The actors are all really wonderful, but especially kudos to Lily Rose Depp, who is sensational as Ellen. She is heartbreaking to watch. It's nerve-wracking at times because it's like, here's this innocent young woman who just wants to create this happily ever after with her husband, but there is this dark shadow that is over her and won't let her go. And unfortunately, she has to make choices about what's going to ultimately happen here. Again, to your point, Nicholas Hoult's Thomas character is also just devastation as well. There is a lot of loss here. This is a story about loss and horror and tragedy. And yeah, it's really well done. I haven't seen Murnau's original Nosferatu from start to finish, but I can already tell that this is way more interesting and really well done. And obviously this film couldn't exist without that, but it's always nice when the student becomes the master, as Eggers has done here with his film. I believe it is still in theaters according to IMDb, but we rented this on Prime. Absolutely, if you can check it out. Again, it's in contention for a lot of technical Oscars. Nosferatu from 2024, rated R, with a runtime of 2 hours and 12 minutes. This is at times somewhat gory, somewhat disturbing.
It's rated R for a reason.
Yes, it's rated R for a reason, but it is absolutely sensational storytelling.
Yes.
Any last thoughts or?
Nope.
Okay. I'm glad that this movie did well. That means that Eggers has money to tell another story and another day. I think he's already, what did you say? Like werewolves is his next project?
Don't know.
I thought you read something.
I never read anything about it.
Oh, I thought you read something to me about it being werewolves. All right. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm sure he's going to have something out very, very soon. And with that, we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.